What can fishing teach us about life?
Patience, for one thing, perseverance. You can't give up just because it gets tough.
I might not be the best at it, but I like to fish. Whether it's crappie, catfish, bass, walleye, whatever's biting. Fishing can teach us a lot about life and a lot about God. For this topic, I sat down and talked to my friend Tony, who knows a lot about fishing. Check it out. One of the things I know you by is a fisherman. How long have you been a fisherman?
Probably from the time I could walk. We lived in a house that was on a creek, and the creek made a horseshoe bend around our house. As far back as I can remember, my dad took me fishing. We didn't have the equipment we have today. We had an old wooden pole that my dad and I would go to the timber every spring, and he would cut our fishing poles and put new line on them and new hooks, and that was it for the year. So it was, from the time I can remember, I ran up and down the creek bank with a fishing rod or pole.
What was the first fish you caught? Was it just a tiny perch, or?
Probably a sun perch, yeah.
And then you were hooked ever since, huh?
Yeah, I grew up with it. My dad and my granddad and my dad had 5 brothers. There were 6 of them, and they all fished. So it was born into me. I had to fish. And
what's your favorite type of fish to catch a fish?
I like to fish for bass, and it's not for food. It's catch and release, and I very seldom ever keep a bass. I will keep a crappie or a walleye. But
you've entered in tournaments. Have you won any, or how have you done with that?
Yes, I've won some tournaments. Our tournaments are team tournaments. You have 2 people in the boat, and you're allowed 5 bass, 15 inches or longer. But when we fish state tournaments, we're paired up with someone outside our club. It's angler and co-angler, and you're fishing against the man in the front of the boat. I have won some of those tournaments. There was, 40 people in it, something like that.
What's your prize money?
It's about $750. Entry fee is, I think it's $120 for a boater and like $80 for a non-boater. You fish no matter the weather. The only thing that usually stops you is real dense fog or real high wind. Those are the 2 things. But rain, snow, sleet, you go fish the tournament. And these bass boats today run 70 miles an hour up the lake, so you better have on some warm clothes if it's cold weather.
I imagine your fingers too, baiting and.
The best thing I've found to use is batting gloves. They're thin. All you want to do is keep the cold off your hands.
So what are the tips for catching bass, and then what's your secret tip?
My secret tip when I'm fishing with somebody else is I'm using something different than they are.
Have you ever hooked yourself in the finger?
Yes. Had a large bait with 3 treble hooks on it, and it hung, and I whipped it to get it loose, and it came loose flying back and hooked me right in the skin right there, and embedded the hook in there. And my friend said, well, we got to go get that cut out, and get a pair of needle nose pliers and whip it out of there. And one other time I got a hook embedded through a fingernail. Small fish will just flop and bounce around like crazy, and it bounced and embedded and then bounced again and jerked it out. Ooh. So
what's your favorite fish to eat?
Walleye, without a doubt. Yeah.
What is the biggest fish you caught?
I think the biggest one I weighed was 7 pounds. I caught one that was bigger, but the batteries were dead in my scales, so You know, the old saying, never weigh a fish. So
Yeah. That's what my grandpa says. You don't weigh a fish because then it can be as big as you want it to be.
Yeah, yeah. It can be 3 pounds when you catch it, and by the time you get to the dock, it can be 5 pounds, and by the time you get home, it'll be 8 pounds.
What is your favorite thing about fishing?
Being there watching the sunrise, just the quiet and trying to outsmart something that has a brain the size of a pea, which is a bass.
Sometimes it outsmarts you.
And yes, being in the boat with someone else and either talking fishing or I usually try to get around to family. Usually that gets around to if they attend church.
Is there any themes there or parallels?
Well, the disciples were fishermen and they turned into fishers of men. So I've noticed over the years that they know that I'm a Christian, and so their actions are different when I'm in the boat with them. Maybe I have some influence on them. I'm not sure, but
You probably help hold themselves to a higher standard.
probably
What can fishing teach us about life?
patience for one thing, perseverance. You can't give up just because it gets tough. You know, have fished with guys and we start fishing a tournament and he said, we have to catch 5 fish. And I said, no, we have to catch 1. We got to start with 1.
So instead of thinking about the big goal, think about the thing you got to do first.
Yeah.
What does your wife think about you fishing so much?
She's been very supportive. I've went, on tournaments that, we were gone like 3 days, but she's been very supportive of it. Equipment is expensive, and so she's never complained. She's been a trooper. She's my completer. She's my completer.
If there's one thing I know about fishing, it's that the fish don't come to you. You got to get in the truck. You got to go down to the boat. You got to put it in the water. You got to drop a line, and you got to have something on the line that the fish want, that they need. God is fishing for us all day long, but we're smarter than fish, or maybe we're dumber. Because I think we know we need God, but we settle for some lure that's going to leave us high and dry. I often find myself being lured away by things like money, fame, popularity, pleasure. But every time I open this book, I know what I need. Matthew 4:4 says, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. I know I need God. I need His wisdom. I need His forgiveness. I need His love. I need His strength. I need His leadership so that I can lead with truth without harshness, tenderness without weakness, and godly masculinity without apology.